Join the movement. Go all electric with Pure Electric.
Hi, my name is Bree McKilligan. Welcome to my house, Minette's Rest. It's a 110 square metre hempcrete house in Dja country, Castlemaine in Victoria. It was built by Joe Diallo, who is from the Hemp Building Company in Kyneton, and drafted by Dean Rayner. The thermal energy assessor is Kirsty Gunn from Eco Mission and Bendigo. So without any experience, I designed the house myself and I based it on a Spanish barn. I riffed it off that. I wanted to create a small enough house as possible where I could live and have city friends to stay, because they love to come up and visit in the country, so it can sleep 8 people. I chose hempcrete from the get-go because of its amazing qualities. It's, as you probably all know, its hemp is very quickly growing, doesn't use a lot of water. It's a carbon capture as the building is built, so it keeps on kind of giving to the environment. It's resistant to fire, pests and mold, and it's great with breathability and beautiful thermal sound insulation and heat insulation. So the house is 110 square metres with the addition of 300mm width hempcrete walls, which suits Zone 7, which we're in here in Castlemaine in Victoria. I wanted a house that, even though it's small, it feels very spacious. So it's got 2 stories because I didn't want to take up too much of the land. And I've got very high ceilings. So the house starts at one side around 3.3 metres and goes up to 6 metres as well. So I wanted that feeling of spaciousness and light. In terms of the rooms in the house, we've got this sort of entrance mudroom. I've got a bathroom, laundry, 2 discrete bedrooms and an open living, kitchen, dining room, lounge room. And upstairs, I've got a sort of, because went double story on the rectangle, I had an additional space, which is an open mezzanine, which can be used for lots of things. So it's the house is orientated north, the lengthways of the house. So we've got that beautiful passive design. There's a pergola out there, and eventually, hopefully in 2 years' time, the grapevines will be giving this very dense shade in the summertime. All the furniture is secondhand. I found it on the side of the street over the decades, and I got quite a lot of it upholstered by friends in order to keep the furniture and not throw things out. I also went, of course, onto Facebook Marketplace and found a lot, including the day bed over here. One of the potential sleeping places for guests, as well as this great find here, which is the Corian bench. It's about 3.6 metres long and 900mm deep. And this was a Facebook find from a rich family in Melbourne who didn't want a white kitchen when they were renovating. So I was very lucky to have this with the integrated sink. I tried as much as possible to make a house with minimal housework, and the integrated sink is fantastic for that. Some of the appliances are secondhand, the dishwasher and the oven, and they're going well so far. It's an all-electric house, so no gas. We've got an induction stove. Some of the light fixtures are secondhand. I found this one on the side of the road. And then I bought this one in a secondhand store to match it. We've used a bit of secondhand timber from the local salvage yard here in Castlemaine. So these Oregon beams are decorative, not structural. I put them in because I didn't want to be looking at a white ceiling, and I wanted to bring the very high ceiling down quite a bit. Other secondhand timber we've got is the Merbau deck balcony, and then the upstairs, the Tasmanian oak secondhand flooring. Downstairs we've got concrete. I went with concrete because I wanted it to be a thermal sink in winter. It's incredibly bright here in winter. We moved in September, and there's my cat. And then we moved in September and it was very, very bright. And then because it's a small house, it's only 80 square meters downstairs, I wanted to keep the flooring consistent. Underneath, I did treat myself, and I've got underfloor hydronic heating. After 3 decades of freezing every winter in Melbourne in rentals, I was like, that's not going to happen again. And it's working beautifully, and we've got 2 radiators upstairs. In terms of cooling, I did put in the electrics for a ceiling fan, as well as the electrics for a split system. But I'm trying to just use desk fans at the moment. I've got a fairly sort of very, very old one, I think from the 1960s, that works really effectively. And I'll just see when the vines grow in the pergola, how cool it is in here. Currently in summer, it's been a very hot summer in Castlemaine. It's stayed around 23 downstairs, but has been quite hot upstairs. And one reason for that is we are facing a beautiful view to the west. We're facing a private gully, which is fantastic given it's a short walk to the village. So I do have quite a bit of glazing on the western side. The windows and doors were made in Melbourne by Highcraft. They did a great job, and they're double glazed with a Victorian ash timber. I chose casement style windows because of the fantastic flow they give, the air. And also I really love that style. It suited the sort of Spanish farmhouse style. And I made them go out because it's a small footprint, the house. But that does mean that, for example, I've got some secondhand shutters in the kitchen, which are really, and bathroom, very effective on the eastern side to shield us from sun. But it does mean that I have to go outside to open the shutters and then open the window if I want the window open. So yeah, it's always a bit of a puzzle trying to get all of the factors working together. But the windows are quite large and I didn't want them to be intruding into the space of the house. I did put a wood fire in. A friend had one, bought one new, and she couldn't fit it in her house, so I bought it off her. I do know that it's polluting to have a wood fire, so I only put it on for special occasions and when guests are here. But it's a very efficient flue because it's such a high flue, such a tall flue. So this is the downstairs bedroom. I tried to make all the rooms as flexible as possible. So this could also be an office or a massage room or a counselling room, depending on what kind of activities myself or friends or partners are doing. And I made it as small as possible. Just got this, oh sorry, Pesci, this ridge here for display. The hempcrete, I'm kind of nervous about drilling into it for painting. So I prefer to place things on shelves and ledges because it is quite crumbly. And then I borrowed a bit of space from the mudroom for the wardrobe. Should have borrowed a bit more. So yeah, I was a very novice designer. Should have borrowed a bit more to push it back. But we've integrated it by using these leftover shelves. All the shelving is secondhand shelving. I've got this little addition of a cat door, a cat little run underneath the stairs. I wanted to use all the spaces, and because I have sliding pocket doors, it's harder for the cats to push their way through. So they're able to kind of circulate on their own little pathway down underneath the stairs. So here we've got the bathroom laundry and the toilet. Originally I wanted a roundhouse, but a quantity surveyor told me I couldn't afford it. So I've got 3 curved walls instead. Got the laundry here, just a single person's household or a household for 2. You don't need an extensive laundry, I think. I've made the curtains myself, tried to do as much as possible I could, including all the painting of the house, and all the staining of the windows and doors. Did that with friends over 2 winters. And I, as much as possible, tried to get Australian made fixtures. So the tapware is from Astra Walker and Fawcett Strawman, both Australian. And these tiles from here and in the kitchen are from Sanctuary Makers in Melbourne. All the tapware is 4 or 5 wells, so water efficient tapware. 1 and 2 baths. I've got this bath and the bath on the deck. And I wanted to have as many plants as possible around, so have quite a lot of recycled chunky shelves for pot plants. And then with the toilet, it's a high WELS rating as well. I've utilised the corner of the benches here for rubbish and recycling. I've got recycling and landfill, which I access from underneath here, and they're on dollies. And then the compost I lift up here. Originally, I did have a hatch for the outside, and I was going to access the rubbish from the outside. Unfortunately, that didn't come through. The builder was worried about the thermal envelope. However, if I did the house again, I would absolutely go for that, for ease of access of getting rubbish. So cost-wise, we all know that construction now is incredibly expensive. The house came in at around $730,000, including the connection of utilities to the land, and that was about $200,000 more than I expected originally. So one thing that the kitchen has is MDF fronts. So fairly cheap material and not that eco, I'm afraid, but it meant that I could paint them. Myself and my friends could paint all of the fronts, and then just got the melamine inside. So I wanted a house, a fairly small house, where if I was living here on my own, I'd feel connected to the whole house. So I left that cavity empty up there. Originally I was going to have shutters, but I haven't really needed them. But I do have the choice in the future to infill it, make it a discrete room, or put shutters or leave it open. But it creates a lovely flow, and obviously hot air is rising, so it's rising and flowing through the stairs as well as that cavity as well. As I said, I had an upstairs area because I didn't want to take up too much of the land. I wanted to have as much garden as possible, and I created, went for the smallest width that is possible with the Australian standards. It's about 600 millimetres wide. So because it's a rectangle and I've got an upstairs area, I ended up with this additional space, which currently is a guest bedroom and a sitting area on the floor, but eventually it'll be my office when I launch my building design business, which will be called Design Green Studio. This room is currently my bedroom, but it also could be quite flexible. Could be an upstairs living room, also my office at the moment. So I wanted to go quite colourful with the painting, particularly in the smaller spaces. Often eco houses have a very sort of naturalistic palette, but I love colour, and I felt because this is west facing and south facing, it could do with that energy of colour, so it's got a 3-colour palette. So I thought if we have an upstairs, then it's great to have a balcony, just that access to outside, surrounded by beautiful natives here. And the deck is secondhand from Salvage Yard in Castlemaine, and it's Mebu, so it's fairly fire resistant. There's no bell rating here because I'm quite, even though it looks like I'm in the bush, quite close to the township of, well, in the township of Castlemaine. So I really wanted a bath outside. That was secondhand from Facebook, pretty cheap. It's absolutely beautiful to have a bath out there. It's plumbed, so hot and cold water during the day or especially at night. It's very beautiful. The deck again is Merbau, so it's secondhand timber. And those chairs are, I've got upholstery friends, so they're often finding things and reupholstering them for me, which is fantastic. So the builder, Joe Diallo, suggested shrouds for the hempcrete to protect them from water as much as possible. They're aluminium and they're powder coated. They give a little bit of protection from the sun, but I find on the western side not enough. Originally, the house was going to be on another part of the land. I co-own a 2,400 square metre lot with a close friend of mine who lives next door, but we had to move the position of the house, so it's ended up with a bit more sun exposure than I liked. So what I'm going to do is get honeycomb curtain blinds for inside, but if I did it again, I would have worked harder to create more of a summer shading here on the western side. So I'm situated on some land that I co-own with a friend. She lives just as a neighbour, and what she wants to do is create a community of women friends living together. So I'm currently designing a house for a friend who hopefully will be living over there in a few years as well. It's 2,400 approximately square metres in the Castlemaine township, but we're very, very lucky because of the gully and the railway line. I sort of feel like we're quite isolated here. It's very private. So this is the northern orientated side. It gets a lot of sun in Castlemaine in summer and winter. Well, I've installed these sunshades temporarily. They were loaned to me, which is fantastic. Didn't have to pay for them. And I'm growing 3 fruit-producing grapevines at the moment. So I'm hoping within 2 years this will be covered by grapevine, and I'll get some really fantastic shade and cool in the summer. So I've got a 6.6 kilowatt solar system from Central Spark in Castlemaine, which is excellent. I'm only really using a tenth of that. I can't afford a battery at the moment, hopefully in the future. I've got 2 heat pumps. One is for the hydronic underfloor heating. So that's the Stiebel Eltron, that very large one there on the right. That was installed by DPP Hydronics, who are based in Moorabbin, Melbourne. And then I bought a Reclaim. I got a split system. I got the toppest range that I could afford. It's 315 litres. And I bought a split one because they're quieter and it's right next to my sunroom as well. So just in the stage of establishing the garden at the moment and creating screens for all the ugly bits. On the western side, I'm going to put in Indigenous plants to this area in autumn. And on the eastern side here, I've got 6 wicking beds for vegetables and herbs. So they're fairly new, but they're already really productive. I had them supplied by Farmer Phil, who's based in Malden, and I highly recommend wicking beds. They are fantastic, particularly in quite dry areas like Castlemaine. So the house is supplied by water from the rainwater tank. It's a 10,999 litre tank. I just have one of them from Kingspan tanks. And it's topped up by the system's water, the mains water. So I did that because Castlemaine's a very dry area and I wasn't, assured of how much rain I'd get. We also have bore water on the property, so that's great for some of the plants. But the rainwater tank, therefore, supplies the whole of the house, including drinkable water. I put in a water filter from PureTech so that we could actually have good tasting water, which is not common in Castlemaine. The NatHERS rating is 8.5, which is pretty good. And then the hempcrete walls are 4.2. They're 300 millimetres thick. So very low embodied energy. And I was very lucky that the hemp was built in Victoria, on the border of Victoria and South Australia. When I first started this journey of wanting to build a house, a hempcrete house in 2018, hemp was only grown at that time in the Hunter Valley in New South Wales. The slab is a 60 XPS insulated slab. And then the roof is Colorbond Surf Mist, so I went for a very light colour. And the ceiling has a R7 insulation. And then the internal walls are insulated are 2.5. In terms of acoustics, it's pretty good. Given, I think the hempcrete buffers sound really well, given that we've got a concrete floor here. And in terms of sound insulation, it's fairly good. I put acoustic insulation between upstairs and downstairs. Underneath the stairs, we've got the infrastructure for the hydronic heating. We've got underfloor hydronic heating and 2 radiators upstairs. It's got a large buffer tank. It needs to be housed inside, so underneath the stairs was the best way to house it. I find the underfloor heating, the hydronic heating, really, really satisfying. Obviously, there's minimal noise, and it's just beautiful ambient temperature. It did cost around $30,000, so it was a bit of a luxury, but I really didn't want to be, it's quite cold here in Castlemaine in winters, and just really didn't want to be cold again in Australia during winter again, so I'm very happy with it. So I had a few strategies to keep the budget down as much as possible. One of them is that I did all the procurement of the fixtures and the systems myself. I enjoyed doing it. It was a bit of a part-time job, but it meant that I could avoid the builder's margin. So I saved a bit there. Did also all of the staining and painting of the windows and doors, the floors and the ceilings and all the walls of the house. So I've got to really thank friends and my former partner for making that possible. Another way I tried to keep costs down was not to buy hardly any new furniture, but to use the furniture I had, the majority of which came from op shops inside of the road, and I did pay friends to upholster some of them, so it felt like the furniture was kind of fresh and suited for this environment. So originally I did contract an architect to design the house. He moved away, so I then decided to design it myself. I really wanted that challenge, and I really kind of knew what I wanted myself, and I was also very worried about the costs that utilising an architect may entail. So I really enjoyed the process, and I then decided during the build that I was going to study building design. So I'm doing that at Kangan TAFE in Bendigo, and once I qualify, I really want to focus on eco residential houses. I'll be based in central Victoria with my business Design Green Studio.